Hello, good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain. So,
Good delight. Thursday. So much. Maokwe Obi
Well, it's a Thursday morning, and it is the 19th day in the month of October 2023. I am Akinde. Good morning and welcome. We give checks for the dates. Well, here is fuel supply check this morning. Chamberlain, you and Markwe have been talking about, the situation of fuel supply in Abuja. Well, I'm unhappy to inform you that it has entered Lagos, even though there are reports also saying that fuel supply, petrol stations are getting supplies now. They were just getting supplies Tuesday or Wednesday, and that is the reason for the shutdown of some fuel stations, including, according to some reports, NNPCL stations in the city of Lagos. What we also understand from available reports is that, marketers, the depot owners, the fuel station owners have had a situation where they have to pay in advance, and from what we gathered, they sometimes have to wait up to 10 days to get their supplies. And of course, they have to wait for as long as it takes before they get their own supplies. So even though the NNPC is giving assurance over and over again that we have enough supply, perhaps the challenge is that of the supply chain. What is responsible for these limitations? What is responsible for the queues in the city of Lagos? And of course, if it is affecting Lagos, you can be sure that it's affecting some cities or perhaps states around it. You're watching us, wherever you are right now, let us know what the situation is in your area. If it is as bad as it is in Lagos, I'm wondering how it is in Sokoto State. I'm wondering how it is even in the 10 cities or states that surround the FCT and other states around it. What's happening in the northeast, the northwest in terms of fuel supply? Let us know. This is what is happening in Lagos, and that is why this report is here now. And Lagos is where mostly fuel supplies birth into the country, and it is where a good number of people get their supplies and distribute to different parts of Nigeria. So let the NNPCL then come out and say, what is responsible for this shortfall? It is not because the roads are that bad, or is it? It'll be good to know. Abuja has been shouting hoarse for a while. So what is happening there in NPCL? Okay.
For real? I don't work there. Well, I guess that's to the, the management of the NNPCL. I'm looking at some of the dailies this morning, and they're highlighting that. I believe that, what they're doing right now is highlighting the experiences that many Nigerians are having. Yesterday, I was just about to go out, and then I just leaving the office, and I was planning my itinerary because I had a few places to stop at, and I'll say, oh my God, my fuel tank is really low now. I need to buy petrol. And I'll say, oh no, there's a fuel station around here. I hope to buy here. And lo and behold, I drove there, and they weren't selling. They weren't selling. I said, oh dear, I hope I find one that is selling before this fuel tank goes to empty. But thankfully, yes, I did. I mean, right next door was another one that was selling. This one owned by multinational. So maybe there is some, the marketers have been saying that there is an unlevel playing field in the sector, which we highlighted yesterday, that the NNPC is the only one that has access to Forex at official rates. A lot of other marketers are having to source their Forex on the parallel market, and it's putting a lot of pressure. It's not even making sense.
do we still have that?
What?
I thought they said they just unified the window.
Unified what?
It's just on paper. OMG.
Chamberlain, I would take you. If you still don't know where the parallel market is located in Abuja, I personally would take you there. Unify what was that?
Whoa.
Yeah.
So what is all this thing they've been telling us that, okay, well, no, don't worry, no. This is unified now, so everybody go to that window. We're not doing anything. We want to make sure that the CBN policy is kicking and have effect.
So what is even more shocking for a number of people is the fact that, I mean, there is the official rate at which the CBN is supposed to give. I think it's an I&E window where most importers of products get their letters of credit, etc., etc., and are able to raise funds. Then there's the parallel market where usually people go there for small funds,
availability,
if they cannot, if they cannot meet demand, maybe at the official window, it's usually not a lot. That's where the demand is met. But now it looks like the big guys are not even able to get Forex at this official window. They are now the ones on the black market piling a lot of pressure. The manner in which the Naira is dropping at the parallel market is alarming, to put it very mildly. And if these guys who are in the energy sector, I highlighted it yesterday, Chamberlain, and I know this is not something that I heard of. I know of marketers who are accessing, Forex at the parallel market. And then there are even two grades to this parallel market. So there is, if you need cash, for instance, the rate which you pay is different from the rate which you pay if you need it within the banking system. So there is like a black market within the banking system because you need to be able to move that money. There are rules around paying in cash and being able to transfer that money within the system. So if you want that one that you can transfer within the system, the rates are different. And that's exactly what is putting a lot of pressure on the. Now, why there is this all of a sudden demand for so much dollars and that the official window cannot meet is something that really bothers everyone. And I think that the CBN, much as they might be watching what is going on, they really owe us an explanation because a huge part of it is a lack of confidence. I keep stressing it. What we were taught in basic economics is that money is supposed to be a store of value. If Nigerians can no longer hold their Naira in confidence, there is a problem. If I wake up today, I mean, someone say, oh, why are you benchmarking your money against the dollar? Or why are you benchmarking your earnings against the dollar? Why won't we? When we know that almost everything that we use is imported. Sometimes it's no fault of us. Sometimes it's because the alternatives are not coming as quickly as possible. Don't forget that one of the major mantras of one of the candidates in this last election was from production and from consumption to production. What are we producing? That's the big question. What are we doing to fire up the people that are producing the little that they're producing? What are our priority areas? I think that there needs to be, beyond palliatives, there needs to be an urgent Marshall Plan to get industries to work, to get cottage industries to work, to fire them up. We're not hearing that. People are wondering, where is the communication to that? And then beyond that, the confidence thing, which I was telling you about, people need to be told, or people need to be shown, maybe not told now, because right now we're beyond, I don't want to say we're beyond propaganda. We need to be shown what the plan is to restore confidence, the confidence of the average Nigerian back in their currency. We need that. Otherwise, the pressure will continue to be piled on the parallel market. This speculation against the Naira is going to continue to be there. And if you ask me to be patriotic, Malkwe, don't join the people that are speculating. Nobody wants to be poor. I don't think it's not a question. Nobody wants to be poor. So please, can we get some communication? Can we get, some conversation around the fact that the CBN and the Minister of Finance are aware of the current situation on the ground? It's very, very important, Chamberlain.
They need any telling now the importance and the place of public communication. I just wonder because, time and again, it just comes across as though several people seem to underestimate or not even pay enough attention or value public communication. We've seen several examples, right from when the president took, his inauguration day up until today, communication, how people internalize communication, how you mean to send a particular message to people, but they see it and interpret it in a certain way. Several aspects of all of this, because look, even if you do all you can to ensure that the country and everything goes well, and you do not communicate it and they don't get the message, they will take actions as far as they think suits them. And that may not necessarily mean that that is what you intend. And so there's several aspects of all of this that can be broken down, which is subject for another day, which we plan to do here anyways. But yes, they need to let the people understand what's going on. And we have several people here who have laid it all out. Very, very simply, as simple as anyone can run with what we need to do. Because they keep on talking about the value of the dollar, its impact on petrol supply, price of petrol here. And the basic question is, okay, well, does that then mean, look, the way with which it falls, if it keeps going this way, impact on petrol, and it sounded alarmist. That was the reality. Because right from when? 60s, 70s, any year you want to pick it up until today, has it been coming down or has it been just, what, going out of hand? These are basic things. And you just keep wondering, what are we really doing here? Because it just comes across as though all the previous policies that the previous government or CBN put in place, it just couldn't hold. It didn't hold. Why? So, look, it is huge. Because all of those speculators and several people who do certain things, they do so based on information available to them, largely. Of course, you have certain people who will deliberately skew certain things to profiteer, and benefit from it. But then, the other aspect of it, when you talk about accessing these currencies, and they go to where it's easy for them to access, the smaller ones. Because when you go through the formal, traditional means, it's increasingly difficult.
Yeah, so the problem now is when the big boys are now playing in small waters.
Now that's a separate challenge all by itself.
What do you expect?
So we've got a challenge on our hands, and it's something we need to really not just do, but we have to be seen to be doing something to inject public confidence into all of these things, such that you and I can go about our businesses. Because, look, it's so sad because you go to do some transactions last week, and then you come this week, different prices entirely. And you're asking yourself, look, how do you just relate to all of these things? Then they talk about palliative subsidy for a certain group of people, as if everybody don't go to the same market. And look, we need to really do something about some of these things, and urgently too, because if not, guess what can happen? Oh, as a matter of fact, let's take a look at this Nigeria as we take you through some of the dailies. It cuts across some of what we've highlighted here this morning. Look at this. Nigerians no longer trust their leaders. And guess who this is coming from? Not me. It's from federal government. It's ascribed to the federal government. It says, concept of nationhood, patriotism, broken down. So you were not wrong. As Information Minister, Idris unveils plan for national reorientation. So yes, he's got a job of work. He's got to do a lot about national reorientation. But his colleagues have got to help him here. By that, I mean what they do. Not just what they say, what they do. What people see you do will be a huge communication. I mean, when you go to practicals in schools, look at all of those things, the theories and practice. Which one sticks to you more? Okay, that's your answer. There you go. And then above this, you see Naira tumbles to 1,100 Naira per dollar at exchange market. Even if the CBN leadership approaches or says, we don't want to be in the front lines, no. We want to be in the background doing our jobs. Look, at some point, you will need to say something. You just have to. How do you get public confidence back? How do you get everyone to say, okay, look, I see your direction. I see where you're going. Okay, let me plan based on what you have said. Because it is with government policies that people can plan. Investors can schedule, they can plan. But if you can't plan, I think it's going to be chaotic. And then at the bottom strip, I have nothing against Islam, says FCT Minister Wike, extends deadline for Abuja Mosque Christian Center to pay ground rent.
Yeah, because all of that's going to come from the donations of the adherents of the faith. And it take a while to gather the money, in this economy. That's going to take a while.
Whenever you just want to highlight one or two things, you just find out there are several other things that need to work for certain things to function. But it is huge as a collective. But it doesn't mean that, it's a hopeless situation. Wherever you are, within your circle, you have to just be seen to take the right decisions. Look, you will be alone in many instances. You will be unpopular in many instances. But look, just do so, such that you can sleep peacefully, happily, maybe ever after. But that's possible. You can, actually.
Peace of mind and body.
That is hugely important, I tell you.
Nothing pays for it. Nothing.
Yeah. That's this Nigeria.
Very interesting headlines there. Well, Daily Trust is highlighting the problem, which Ayo already brought to our attention. And that's the lead story there. Marketers blame Forex, others, as fuel scarcity returns to Lagos, Abuja. So that story is right there on the front page of Daily Trust. Say petrol business no longer attractive. NNPCL, other stations shut. Okay, so when NNPCL is shut, then there's fire on the mountain. So you might want to know which one of the NNPCLs have been shut. But we've been seeing in recent times, let's say a buying spree on the part of the NNPCL. A number of hitherto, shall we call them independent marketers, looks like their facilities have been bought over by the NNPCL. Is that some business direction which they're taking? So, for instance, along Abuja's major airport road that's leading from the city to the airport, you might be able to find like 4 or 5 NNPCLs, which wasn't the scenario, say, about 6 months ago. So is this some deliberate policy which the NNPC is taking on? I think even in Lagos, a number of filling stations now are also now being acquired by the NNPCL. So I don't know what's going on. It will have its pros and its cons, but if we're all shareholders within the NNPC, if it's still our national oil company, never mind that it's been privatized, we don't know. I think, is it supposed to be listed?
Yeah, it's a private company, eventually.
It's a national private company.
It's even confusing.
It's a very confusing situation.
Doesn't function in the natural way.
I'm going to, when I think about it, I'm like, hold on, it's supposed to be national, but then it's private. But I don't know. But can they tell us what exactly is going on? It's still possible for us to demand explanations because somehow they're operating in the regulatory space, but they're also within the operative space as well. So page 4 is where we'll find details. And then you also have an explanation here from the federal government why marketers can't access dollar at official rate. So there are questions asked around there. It looks like some answers have been provided. Daily Trust will give you all of the details. Right there on top of on top of that lead story, you also see, I would have couched this differently, the editor. Amidst the controversy, amidst the firestorm trailing his appointment, Senate confirms Olukoyede. It's not there, sorry, that's just me adding what is not there. This is the headline.
But that'll be context.
Headline says, Senate confirms Olukoyede as EFCC chairman. That's the headline. Point blank. No, there's no extraneous material attached to it, and I'm not adding any. Page 15 is where you find details. After $1 billion drop, Nigeria may suffer further decline in FX inflows. That's according to a report. 3 terrorists, 1 soldier killed in a gun duel in Kaduna. That story is right there. And at the bottom, Gaza, Islamic nations accuse Israel of state-sponsored terrorism. That is right there. U.S. vetoes UN Security Council resolution on humanitarian pause. We're ready for negotiations, according to Palestine ambassador. The story is on page 8 here on Daily Trust. And look at this. I'm not the one who's saying it. Operators suggest palm oil as aviation fuel hits 1,000 naira per liter. Is this a joke? Or are they for real? Is there something to it? Can they tell us if there's really... Because...
I don't think I heard right.
Do you know what this will mean for those of us who still use palm oil to cook? Please.
Operators suggest what?
Palm oil.
As aviation fuel.
Please read the context.
I didn't see that coming.
It's very important. Page 22 is where you find
Where you think you've seen it all?
Don't run with the headlines. I beg you.
Okay, I'll try not to. I, for one, will try not to. I'll try. But I can't help you right now.
And there's a matter which is not a laughing matter here. It's been on for a while. Diphtheria. Borno records 59 deaths, 481 cases in 14 local government areas. This is taking a lot of lives. 59 deaths, 59 people. At this point, if it was another situation, you remember when we had COVID, there would have been some shutdowns. So can we get further updates on what precisely is happening with the areas that are at risk? And now that we're exiting the rainy season, are we at further risk where things can spread very quickly via the
lifestyle is huge. I see a lot of things going on here. Basic lifestyle in the name of culture. Things need to change, basically.
Well, I guess we'll have to speak with the NSCDC boss to get an update on what is happening in that particular situation. Let's leave it there for Daily Trust.
Very concerning, especially when you find that the local government system is not as active as it used to be. And Chamberlain, while you talk about lifestyle, let's also remember that in this local government, at the local government level, we have what they call environmental officers. So if the people's lifestyle isn't going to help their health, it is the job of those environmental officers at the local government level to ensure that they do by taking away the risks to their health. But as you highlighted yesterday, Chamberlain, the local government system needs attention very, very urgently. And as for the palm oil case, Markwe, I have no case yet. Let's look at the front page of the Leadership newspaper this morning. It is talking about something a little concerning. Look at the lead story. 10 years after, Genco's discourse frets over license renewal amid uncertainty. Find details of that on page 4. FG begins review in few days. Stakeholders fault entire privatization process. What is going to come out of that? I guess we're going to have to wait and see. Number of other stories on the front page, but hey, that's a Leadership newspaper this morning. Oh, I need to mention this one before we go. Governors back state of emergency in education sector. Great. So, what's the plan? That's the Leadership newspaper.
Okay, take a look at The Guardian next. Certificate brouhaha as their theme. Politicians leverage Electoral Act loopholes to evade scrutiny. So, I think they then go in and then they break it down in terms of context and what they mean. Maybe they didn't want to put it on the front page here. It's all economic, so... But I'm sure it will be in there somewhere. So you just need to grab a copy and have a look yourself. And then unequally, this one sticks out as well. U.S. vetoes UN resolution on ceasefire as Middle East allies snub Biden. And it just keeps going on there. So I hope that certain people here will not, because look, we're grappling with a lot of challenges back home here. We should learn to focus and address some key economic situations ourselves here, first and foremost. Worries as Naira slumps further to 1,100 Naira to the dollar in unofficial markets, and it just keeps going on. Okay, that is The Guardian today.
And looking at New Telegraph for you, and they have this. PANDEF wants federal government to legalize fund artisanal refining. Wonders why government allows solid mineral mining in North. Forbids coal fire in Niger Delta. So it looks like they're protesting against what they perceive to be double standards page 4 is where you find details there. Pandef wants federal government to legalize, fund artisanal refining. Look at this here. Now I can investigate Senate President. That's according to Olukoyede. He said that yesterday.
Oh dear.
Says Nigeria lost 2.9 trillion naira from 2018 to 2020 to contract procurement fraud. Details on pages 3 and 29. Concern as Nigeria's suicide rate rises above global estimates. Psychiatrists blame socio-economic issues. Time was when we would say, and Chamberlain, I still remember when we started this program. Well, I was not here when the program was started, but when I joined this program sometime in 2011, we could still say then that Nigerians were largely, I don't want to say strangers to suicide, or we could say then that a lot of people, were averse to suicide. We've always been. I mean, our culture prohibits it, etc., etc. But then we had the advent of Boko Haram, when we heard that Nigerians were actually they lent themselves to use as suicide bombers, which was really strange to us. And then we now have a situation where we've been seeing attempted suicide on bridges, in different situations. And now, reading this, it's a real horrible progression we've made. It's almost normal. You hear cases of suicide, and we think it's normal now. This is very, very concerning. It says, concern as Nigeria's suicide rates rise above global estimates. This is something we should pay some attention to. Look at this. PwC oil deregulation reducing Nigeria's purchasing power. Says transportation, storage sectors contracting. Yes. Nigeria doesn't have manpower to develop its economy. Pages 2 and 28.
Really? Wow.
This is attributed to Babalaki. So I think we can leave it there. A number of other stories. I don't intend to depress you. That's not the idea. The idea is to go through the dailies. Let's leave it there for New Telegraph.
I think I can quickly cite this one if we can. Look at Vanguard. Contracts, procurement fraud, which is what you just spoke about briefly, cost Nigeria 2.9 trillion naira in 3 years, ascribed to Olukoyede, the new EFCC boss. So what were the previous EFCC chairmen doing? Is it that they couldn't achieve it? Why couldn't they do it? He's giving us his soundbite, so we're hoping that when he's done, okay, well,
that's his perspective as a lawyer, I guess.
Okay, all right. And then insecurity. Gunmen kill 15, kidnap 14 in Benue, Zamfara, Nasarawa, Lagos. Yeah. So all of these areas, this.
You just said Lagos?
Yeah, in Lagos as well. So it's also there so that everybody will sit up. I know when you think about some of these things, you think about a few areas. Oh, by the way, they need to also pay a lot of attention in Zamfara because students, they're now going to hostels, trying to kidnap persons there. And then they just seem to change their method, some of these things. But it's just a lot that needs to be done.
Yeah, but we will say that we're not aware of situations where students have been kidnapped from their hostels, especially in places that are regarded not to be safe. What was Chibok girls? What was Boniyadi? What was... How many more kidnaps need to happen for us to know that if we're going to be keeping students in hostels, in places that are largely, suffering from grave insecurity problems, that we're putting them in danger?
In addition to that, what are the governors of these states? What have they done, to ensure that this does not remain the same? Those are more questions that need to be asked, especially even with the suicide cases. They also have a huge responsibility here. And so, because if all the funds are being funneled or channeled, allowed for the governors to hold, what is going on? We need to ask more questions about states, governance. How does that play out in different states? So let's see what we can focus on as we move on. But this ends a look at some of our dailies here today on the program. Just give us a moment. We'll be back.
These are members of the Yaga Africa Election Observer Mission to Liberia, where they monitored the general election that took place recently. And they are holding this news conference in Abuja to brief on their preliminary report. On October 10, 2023, Liberians filed out to vote in the country's presidential election under the watch of several local and international observer missions. Members of the Yaga Africa Election Observer Group who monitored the exercise speak on their observations in this preliminary report.
We did observe a firm commitment on the part of the Electoral Commission to ensure transparency and openness in the management of the results collation or tallying process. The election officials, meticulously enforced the counting and results tallying procedures. And in cases where objections and queries were raised by party agents and observers on matters relating to inconsistencies or computational issues, they were addressed promptly in the full view of everyone.
Also, as part of observation, in addition to everything else that has been said, was also the role that the media played. You could see that they had a commitment to independence and fairness. And in the programs that were broadcast, which we were privileged to listen to on radio, we found out that a number of them, were very committed to peace, to fairness, and to patriotism.
Beyond these observations, the group is calling for some reforms in Nigeria's electoral system.
We're also recommending that INEC should review the format of ballot papers used in Nigeria to include photographs and names of candidates to improve the quality of electoral preferences and reduce, incidence of invalidated votes. But in addition to that, that the National Assembly also reviews the electoral law to address, some ambiguities in the results collation and transmission process.
INEC tries in other parts, but there is room for improvement that INEC can also learn. INEC cannot say it knows everything. Like the issue of the over-bloated register, I believe that it is actually over-bloated. INEC, like I said earlier, has to find another way whereby it can reduce the number of the people that are already dead that are on that register.
Elections in Nigeria are in a cycle of 4 years, and members of the Yaga Africa Group believe strongly that there is an urgent need to pursue those reforms in Nigeria's electoral system ahead of the next general election in 2027.
Okay, welcome back. Yes, that is what we'll be focusing on this morning. We've got Mr. Yabagi Sani here with us. He is the National Chairman, Inter-Party Advisory Council, also National Chairman of ADP. That's Action Democratic Party.
That's right.
Okay. You were in Liberia as well.
That's just somebody.
You were there to observe what was going on. So I know there were several lessons learned about some of these things, but just tell us, how was your experience in Liberia?
Well, the experience was refreshing in the sense that you see a country that has put in place an organized, process that the citizens keyed into. Because what we observed is that there was a lot of excitement on the side of citizens. And
to go and vote?
To go and vote. And even on the day of election, the turnout from what we observed, we asked that, is it all the time that will come out like this? They say, no, this election, was the one that they had about, this kind of large turnout, particularly the youth and women. So that is instructive in the sense that Liberia haven't gone through what they went through, in 2003 when the Civil War, ended, had come to terms with the fact that they have to take their destiny into their hands, and it is only through democracy that they believe they can be able to survive the experience that they had. So, and the youth were very committed, because even our driver, the one that took us around, was so excited about the exercise and had a very, very clear, vision and understanding of what is at stake.
What was the distinctive difference in terms of what you saw with the electorate, youth, which you spoke about now, and us when we did ours here?
Yeah, you see, there are a lot of things that played out in our own case.
In terms of the youth now?
The youth, yes, even the youth. We had a fragmented, electorate, in the sense that people were not really voting for Nigeria, as the case was. They were voting for...
How do you mean?
No, they were voting for my person, who is from my region and who is our turn. So, it wasn't... They weren't voting. That's why you had the kind of situation that we had. I'm talking about those sentiments that is so deep in our psyche, political thinking in this country. People think of your ethnicity, your religion and region first before you think about Nigeria. And that is why we have the kind of problems we are having. But in the experience I don't know, the Civil War had, I think it brought the people together, and they now focused on Liberia. How do we get this country out of doldrum? How do we move it forward? And that's why I'm saying, you see, that's why even the man who is there now, George Weah, you can see the results. I mean, the opposition had also 0.05, I think for 3.65, and that's what George Weah get. And then the man who was opposition, even though old, the man is pushing 80, now,
Joseph Walker.
Joseph Walker, yes,
So they didn't care?
Eh?
The people didn't care. They just wanted to vote for whoever they wanted.
They wanted to change, really. Believe you me, they wanted to change because they were not satisfied with what the present government was doing in terms of development, how it impacted them. So, and I saw that in our interviews, with the youth in particular, the youth brought George Weah to power, but for some reasons, they didn't like what he did. And that's why you had that very tight, neck-to-neck kind of... in fact, the runoff, we don't know what's going to happen. It's very tight. The tightest, election that they ever had.
As a politician
in Liberia,
haven't seen our system, what we do, how you participate. I'm sure you would have interacted with other politicians there as well. What were the key lessons that you got from that?
Well, the key lessons, like I said, the people were nationalistic. Yes.
The politicians themselves.
Yes. The key lessons for us in this country. And that is why, in IPAC, we have deliberately embarked on some programs that will showcase democracy to the people of this country. That is not about where you are from or the religion or something. No, it's about delivery of that dividends of democracy. That's why, I don't know if we are having peer review mechanism. We want to compare what each, especially at the level of the subnationals, that is the state governors. We're also coming up with centenary celebration. Democracy, political party evolution is 100 years, 2003. And we believe that Nigerians, for one reason or another, are getting more and more disconnected with democracy itself. They are losing interest in democracy because they are seeing it as not what it's supposed to be. But the experience we got in Liberia is that this is where a country that people are, energized, focused on how do we get Liberia, to start performing, delivering, working, peaceful. Peace was what everybody was mentioning. Anybody you interview there Well, Mope was there, I'm sure. She can confirm some of these things I'm saying.
About to say, you are the one who is buttressing what it is that I have said. I mean, and how big a priority it was for the citizens of Liberia to have peace. I mean, when you have been through 2 civil wars, and you're yet to recover from it, no one tells you the value of peace. I think that, you know, while that can be said, what we also noticed was that we had quite a number of observer groups, and I was very pleased to see that, you know, IPAC was also in Liberia. I do not know what the thrust, because it would seem that different groups were focusing on different things in the election and the conduct of the election. But as IPAC, what would you say was your primary thrust as a group going to monitor the elections in Liberia?
Well, we went there. Our first call, of course, port of call was the NEC. You know, we had a meeting with the chairperson, who was excited, like you said,
NEC,
for seeing us.
Their own version of
their
INEC.
own version of INEC, exactly. You know, the National Electoral Commission. What we were interested in is the relationship between NEC there and the political parties. One thing we observed that is not there is that they don't have an organization like what we have here of political parties like IPAC, you know, in the form we have it. So, I'm sure as we move on from my interaction with her, is that they will perhaps have something like what we have here. What they have...
Do they need it?
They need it. Because what they have now is that it's when they have this engagement, an issue comes up and then they summon, they invite the political parties, they sit down with them. Of course, it's chaired by the NEC, you know. So they need it, although they are a small country, but even at that, you still need to be organized in a manner. I mean, you can imagine you have 31 political parties, you know, in an election, and to manage 31 organizations, you know, definitely you need to have some kind of organized body that will be interacting with them, you know. So we noticed that the INEC there also were also interested in the process, you know. How do they handle it so that, you know, nobody gets shortchanged, you know, by way of managing the process and then delivering results, meaning that votes count end of the day. And from what we saw, biometrics is being used now, but of course they haven't gotten to the level of using things like beavers and things like that. But we in Nigeria, we will not believe this, we are still battling with the kind of problems, which is the manual process of collation, you know. And you know, that is where elections are won or lost, because like the saying, it's not those who cast the vote, but those who count the vote that really determine who wins an election. So in that kind of environment.
Is it the same thing
it's still manual, you know, but accreditation, the, what do you call it? The registration of voters, you know, is still...
But that was still peaceful, despite that.
Yeah, because of the underlying, you know, condition, which is the underlying condition, the fact that people are keyed into the fact that they must, you know, make Liberia work. And through what system? Through democracy. That's why everybody you talk to...
People, largely politicians.
Politicians, citizens, you know, together.
Because over here, what we see, politicians seems to be the one who stoke all this fire. These people are fighting for politicians. They are candidates to win.
Yeah, but in Liberia, of course, as a political party, you must fight for your candidate to win.
I mean,
but
not arming thugs. That's all right.
No. I mean, not arming thugs. You know, political contest. Although there wasn't, we didn't see any unpleasant scene where people killed or something like that. Although I heard that there were some fracas, but it wasn't at the level like what we normally witness in this country.
So yesterday, I mean, it's an interesting thing. You said you went to see the NEC, that's the National Electoral Commission,
yes.
because you wanted to see what the engagement was like with political parties,
exactly.
And also the fact that they, you know, maybe how they were increasing the confidence levels in the political parties and showing that they were capable of delivering on these elections. And this is highly significant, given that this is the first time they're going to be doing it all by themselves with very minimal intervention. And then when we come back home now, we begin to see a lot of stories around on INEC and political engagement. What did The Guardian say today? I'm seeing something there. Politicians leverage Electoral Act loopholes to evade scrutiny. This is the lead story on the front page of The Guardian today. Yesterday, it had this: INEC's credibility sinks as 94% contested posts await tribunal. This is the lead story on the front page of one of the major dailies. Yeah. You have to now ask, because, I mean, as you have also said, I've attested to it, a lot of people turned out. I think at the last count, we heard that about 70% of those who were registered to vote, turned up to vote on elections day. And that figure is not doubtful, given what it is that we saw. So for you right now, given where we currently are with confidence levels in our own INEC, what do you think needs to be done? What needs to be done? Because some people are saying, look, politicians have been the biggest beneficiaries of this democracy and yet seem to be its biggest enemy by how they conduct themselves. Do you think that the people who need to be spoken to are the political class, or do you think that the problem is with the umpire, the electoral umpire?
No, I don't think the electoral umpire has much to do with what is happening to us. I think it's us, Nigerians, and in particular, the National Assembly. National Assembly? Yes, because they are the ones that made the laws. You cited the case of Electoral Act that politicians are leveraging on that to evict scrutiny and things like that. Loopholes. That we have 90-something% of the cases, of 94%, 94%,
being contested.
Yeah, being contested. Well, the issue is that the Electoral Act itself is so ambiguous in some areas, believe you me, and it was done deliberately by the National Assembly to serve their own selfish interest. There are cases you can easily look at what we had to go through to get even the transfer of results from the polling units to the portal automatically. I don't know if you still remember. Some of you, I think the CSOs, what have you had to demonstrate, go to National Assembly. Why should it take that? And even when they now introduce it, they now again took it away. It's the National Assembly. We must focus on the National Assembly. They are the culprits. They are the one that put us where we are. It's not INEC. INEC will only operate the law, that they have. National Assembly, like I said, we politicians too. Because we use money. There has to be a willing giver before you get a willing receiver. So if you talk about corruption and what have you, we are the ones, really making the process to be as corrupt as it is, as politicians. And beginning with the National Assembly. They deliberately put those minefields that you are talking about today, which has led to the 94% or whatever. And even that figure is not correct, really, because I think they were looking at also the issue of primaries and things like that, that got, too many. So not really the general elections themselves. Most of the cases were from the primaries. And primaries were conducted by us, not INEC. So these are the issues that we must interrogate and we must come to terms with. Do we really want democracy to work? But in IPAC, like I said, we are doing quite a lot, because as political parties, we are also coming up with our own election management system, results management system, so that it's not only INEC now that has, is the system that will give us the results. We may not be able to announce the winner, but we will take whatever INEC declares at the polling unit and feed it into our own system too. Technology is available. I mean, it's not something that we cannot acquire,
Interesting solutions that IPAC is thinking of. But when you realize that, the major problem is with politicians, you pointed more pointedly at the National Assembly. But we also know how this revolving door thing works. You're there today, you're out tomorrow, and then, and you've also given politicians a fair share of the blame, especially when you talk about the primary. So the question for me is, what can be done about talking to politicians? What can be done for them to see the advantage? Because if the people who seek to lead us do not show, are not patriotic enough, can they demand of their citizenry virtues that they are bereft of?
We should hold them to account, power to account. Nigerians should do that. There's no reason why we can't do that. I'm not saying burning down places or something like that. We should hold power to account. There are many ways we can do it. It's happening around us, every other country. You know? So because you see, if you don't make laws that will give you, you know, a progressive, you know, nation, like which is what we want. I'm going back to National Assembly because this is a constitutional democracy we're running, isn't it? Everything has to be referred to the law. What does the law say? We're not so dumb that we don't know that if you said, you give me this one, you take it away again, you know, and then, you know, that all you are asking for is confusion. That's what you have done. Like the Electoral Act we have today, like this transfer of results. Why should you say it's up to INEC to choose whatever they want? Fine, you know, and then later you say, well, if they change it, it's okay. I mean, how more confused you want the nation to be if you do not give a straightforward, you know, law that will give an ambiguous direction as to what to do or actions that must be taken, you know, by the electoral umpire. You know, we have to know where the problem is coming from, and only Nigerians can change that. It's not another person.
It's not the politicians themselves. They cannot have a frank conversation amongst themselves.
Well, unless you know, I cannot say that I'm not one of them. But the issue here is that human nature, if you do not make a system or a situation that rewards and punish, and if I do something wrong, I'll be punished. If I do something right, I'll be rewarded. That has to be in our laws, in our system. I'm talking about you are now going back to judiciary, you know, who also they have to sit up too, you know, to be counted as those who really have this country at heart. They want it to work. Judiciary must stand up, you know, to the plate. That yes, they are really for democracy. What I'm seeing today, democracy is not supporting democracy at all. I mean, judiciary I'm talking about. You know, with the kind of judgment, the kind of decisions, I mean, orders they are giving, it doesn't reflect people that have interest in the survival of democracy. Well, and for a good reason, you know, for judiciary, whether it's the military, whether it's the democracy, you know, I mean, government, they don't lose. So Nigerians must stand up and then attack, not attack in the sense that not to burn down anybody or burn down properties or kill anybody. Hold these people to account.
You make it seem, I mean, when you talk about, I know my colleague Ayo is waiting to get in his own questions, but when you say that the judiciary doesn't lose, you make it seem like as if they are not citizens of Nigeria as well, first and foremost, before they're members of the judiciary.
You say the beneficiaries of this system is politicians, isn't it?
Okay. Isn't that correct?
That is right, but we are the casualties, the first casualties when democracy fails. Although the citizens are the biggest losers, you know. But there are institutions in this country that do not lose, whether it's military or civil or democracy.
The point I'm making is
that in fact they even get more.
If you are looking at just institutions, you must remember that the people whom power these institutions or man these institutions are first of all citizens before they are members of any institution. Isn't that correct?
Does it change citizenship if there's military or civilian administration?
Doesn't it change the environment in which we all can operate?
It changes the environment, but for some people, for only the few.
Well,
those who dictate what happens or read the law to you and say that the interpretation is this, how do they get affected? I don't know. You have to tell me.
Let's go to break now. We understand that we'll be coming back and going to Lagos when we come back from this break. Please stay with us.
Thank you for staying with us. We still have Mr. Ayabagi Sani in our Abuja studio. He's chairman of the IPAC. Thank you again. Well, you know, I'd like to play a little more on one or two questions that Mokwe asked you. You're chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council. And one of the questions my colleagues have taken you up on is the role of the political class in ensuring that our elections are as smooth as they can be. Do you think there should be a sort of system of entry into politics, such that when anyone is a politician in the country, knowing that the person stands a chance of leading the country in one way or the other, whether as an elective, whether in elective office or in appointed office, do you think there should be some kind of standards for getting into politics as a career and not just as some kind of vocation that takes anyone in?
Well, yeah, I think I believe so, but remember that democracy cannot be legislated. You can't legislate my inalienable freedom. Democracy is citizens' inalienable freedom. So you can't stop anybody from participating. But what can happen is that the political parties or the political class can self-regulate themselves, just like you have other organizations, associations. MBA, MDA, and all these other organizations, they have some kind of disciplinary, systems in their organization. So IPAC is also, thinking about having something like that. You must, first of all, sign up, to abide by certain do's and don'ts, as a politician. And we can do it because we can sanction people. We can stop you from participating as politicians, politically. We can resolve our issues politically. But when you now say that you have some level of education, you will be abridging somebody's constitutional rights because the Constitution says the qualification is, in fact, you don't even need school certs if you can prove that you can read and write and understand. But
on that, Mr. Yabagi, Mr. Sonny, just on that, isn't that a problem? Because before anyone gets into civil service, the basest level of, I think, maybe level 6, the person has to have a minimum of first degree, if memory serves me right. Now, someone is aspiring to supervise people who have PhDs, who have professorial certificates, and the minimum requirement for that person to get into office is a school cert, not even to pass, but to just attempt it. Don't you think that is a problem?
Well, like I said, democracy is your inalienable rights, to benefit from the, it doesn't, you should not be in any way denied as a citizen. Once you are a citizen and your people like you and they believe in you, I think you are qualified to lead.
I understand that, Mr. Sonny. I understand that. But the challenge here is the quality of person that is going to get into the office. The fact that someone is liked doesn't make the person a king or a chief in a local community. The fact that someone is famous in the civil service doesn't make the person qualify to get a job or to even get promoted in that organization. How much more governing a country or a state? Don't you think we should raise, at the very least, raise the educational standard in a way that it is more competitive as opposed to what we have now?
No, the only competition you need is who can attract people's votes. And if the people say this is the person they like, I mean, it's like they said, if you have a fool in power, those who elected in are well represented. So if we behave like fools, we keep on having fools in power, in positions. So it's us that should...
let me ask you that question pointedly. Do you think the Constitution should be reviewed to raise the minimum qualification for anyone running for office of governor or president of the country higher than the school set level?
Well, I believe that, given the times we are in, given the fact that you need to have certain educational qualities, some skills. Perhaps yes, you can say yes. Let's raise it to some level. But the point I'm making is that you should be wary of abridging people's constitutional right and their human rights, and then their right to represent their people. I mean, it's up to the people, really. It's not about you. It's not about you making some, some boundaries for them. As far as people are concerned, if they believe in this person, it's up to them. I mean, it's not yours. I mean, that's what I'm saying. If people elect somebody and the person it turns out to be a fool, then they are well represented. They are fools. That's why they elected the person. So perhaps, yes, you can say qualification-wise you want to have some, but in some cases it's not about technical knowledge or things like that. It's about wisdom. It's about your interpersonal relationship with the people. How are you able to attract the confidence of the people? Wisdom does not necessarily come with the school certs or school certificates and things like that. No, that does not translate to wisdom. So, and in leadership, you are looking for wisdom. You are looking for people who can really represent the people properly, who people have confidence in, so that he can now be able to command their respect. There are two things here that we must understand. Okay. There's what we call authority, and there's what we call power. You can put somebody in the office that he has the authority, but he may not have the power of commanding the followership to do what he wants.
Well, wisdom has been defined as the correct application of knowledge. So knowledge is required if you are going to even apply the wisdom. But let me ask a question along the line of one of the issues we raised during the papers this morning. The Minister of Information and National Orientation has been quoted as saying that Nigerians no longer trust their government, the people that they elect into power. Excuse me. When you recruit people into office, you don't trust them. And that has been his comment for a while. And he is championing national orientation. In fact, along the line in the conversation that he had with journalists, he's talking about the fact that patriotism has gone down really low. Belief in the country has also dwindled over the years. Now, how can we transfer patriotism or a lack of it, belief in country or a lack of it, into our electoral matters in a way that, excuse me, eventually it is something functional for us all, and it follows us into our advocation, or rather our interest or advocacy for good governance and uncontested elections in the country?
Yeah, you have to look at the root cause. What is responsible for people losing confidence in their leaders or in the people that have elected? It's because there is lack of delivery of dividends of democracy. We are not in the Constitution say you must ensure that you provide for the welfare and for the safety and security of the people. But how much have we done that? So this is the issue. It's the issue of people you are electing. Why are they not delivering? They are not delivering because there is high-level corruption. There is the issue of, like we are saying, the laws being ambiguous, which is by National Assembly, the lawmakers. And then, unfortunately, again, you have the law interpreters also compromised in some of the things they are doing. So how do you want, what magic do you want to perform to make people to work? If you have these two institutions not working for the country, there's no way anything will work. Whatever you put there cannot stand. That's why I'm saying that these two institutions, which formed the tripods that we call the government, executive, legislative, and also the judiciary. Legislative and judiciary are not working for Nigeria. They are not working for their country. There's no way the executive can work. The executive, I mean, it's a human nature. You give them such an environment, they do whatever they like. That's why the drafters of the Constitution brought out these two institutions. These two institutions today cannot be said that they are working for the interests of this country. Nigerians must wake up and hold them to account. That's the point we are making.
Okay. On that.
And that's why, in our own situation,
yes,
we have come up with programs that will make Nigerians to begin to appreciate democracy.
Okay, so how does this program of yours,
centenary celebration,
yes, all these programs that you're talking about,
yes,
how does it factor in the politician? Because In the National Assembly that you mentioned, the politicians are there,
yes,
100%, but except for, you know, technocrats, the civil service that work with them. In the judiciary are technocrats as well, who are not elected but appointed. But guess what? It is the politicians that take cases, sometimes that shouldn't go to courts, according to some of the things that lawyers have told us. Yesterday, for instance, we had 2 SANs saying that there is a case that shouldn't have gone to court, but guess what? That case has gone to court. So it is the politicians that take these cases to the judiciary. And the judiciary have always said, it's like the politicians are trying to make them lose face. So it goes back to the politicians who are citizens of the country, or doesn't it?
Once a politician gets punished for the case that shouldn't bring to court, that's what we call court abuse of court processes, isn't it? And it comes with certain punishments. Why don't they mete out the punishment to the person who brought the case to court? The court is the last bastion. I mean, that's what the common man, everybody has. So if somebody, you know, misbehaves, the lawyer should be questioned too, you know, because I as an individual cannot approach the court just on my own. I have to go through a counsel. So the counsel is supposed to know that this matter shouldn't go to court. Why can't the judiciary punish themselves? That is sanction the lawyer and then ensure that you met out, you know, the kind of the sanctions that are applied, you know, when somebody abused the process. So that's an excuse as far as I'm concerned.
So moving forward, when you say you identify some of the problems you face here, what would you suggest? Because I hear you talk about ethnicity, religion, some of these things as a challenge you face here. And then in context of the kind of democracy that we operate, what would you suggest? How do we improve things?
Well, how we improve things is that, you see, the leadership has a lot to do with it. You know, leadership has a lot to do with this. And that's why some of us are not happy with what is happening today. We are talking about these sentiments. You know, we cannot have leaders that dance to those sentiments, that their actions are seen by Nigerians as being tribalistic or being ethnicist or regional in action. Like the appointments that President Tinubu has done. That is not a Nigerian actions that we required. That even the Yorubas are becoming embarrassed.
Which appointments?
Appointments for people to positions in government. We say we condemn Buhari for doing nepotism and what have you, and we have a worst case scenario now. And we want to build a nation.
How is it worse?
It's worse because it's worse because you have, you know, most of the choicy positions are all, you know, people from Southwest or Yorubas. We said that about Buhari. We were not happy when Buhari was doing it. Even Northerners were complaining. And what did we get? Nothing. The government could not operate because people were saying that, well, it's their government, let them do it. The rank and file will not, they will just say, yes, sir, yes, sir. But nothing gets done because they don't feel connected. Nigeria is a country that you must take into cognizance certain fundamentals that are there.
So, should we then leave it to the leaders? Because tomorrow, if somebody else is appointed, chances are that they will do the same thing. And if they do
That's
the same
the point
thing,
I'm making.
People from the region, whether it's from the north,
from the
south,
our regret as politicians, especially in IPAC, is that we expected the present president, you know, to demonstrate a full
so I'm asking
Democrat, which he is.
I'm asking.
But who dropped the ball? Where did we get it wrong?
Having identified those issues,
yes,
you say we blame the politicians.
Yes.
So should we leave it then to the politicians to fix it? How do we fix it? Because it's not for lack of laws. We have those laws there.
Yes.
The federal character principle is there.
Yes.
And we saw in time past how they were flagrantly violated.
Yes.
So what then do we do?
What we do is to do what we are doing now.
What we're doing now, which you complain about?
Yes, we complain and then tell the person that what you are... Okay, how else do you do it? You have said that the laws are there, isn't it? Enforcement of the law. And some of the laws are not, you know, such that you can even do anything about, because it is at the whims and caprices or at the pleasure of, for instance, Mr. President. It's at the pleasure of Mr. President to appoint who he wants to appoint, to where he wants to appoint them.
Okay,
but the nation, people are complaining that it doesn't carry the portrait of this country.
We need to wrap up. So Do you think that part of the steps we should take moving forward is to remove religion from national affairs? Let it be people's private business. Don't fund any key stuff about religion. Don't bring it out and rub it in people's faces, something like that. But all religions, but make sure it's in the private. It's not in that. It doesn't take, at least, we overemphasize it in public circles. Because if that then keeps happening, are we going to get a different result?
No. You see, the question is this.
No?
I mean, these are not.
You said no because you said politics, ethnicity, religion.
Yeah, but these are not things that you can remove. They are part of us. We are what we are.
I'm not saying they shouldn't be part of us. I say they're part of us when we practice it privately. But when you come to the public space,
exactly. So which law? Which law do you want to use? There's no law that says that the Constitution has given Mr. President the rights to appoint anybody he wants to. All he says is that take somebody from each state, as far as the ministers are concerned. He has done that. But you know that it's not just being government, it's being where. How do you impact? How do you reflect that, we are part and parcel of this system? That I'm also carried along, that I'm also loved, that I'm also, I'm getting the same leverages and everything that any other person is getting. That is a missing link, and that's what we must provide. And the only person can do it, I don't know who else can do it better than President Tinubu, who has lived all his life as a Democrat.
All right, I say questions about National Hajj Commission, but look, we're out of time. Maybe our next focus might see what we think about all of these things. But we thank you for coming on. Yabagi Sani is the National Chairman, Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC, National Chairman, ADP. He was also in Liberia to observe the election, so he was sharing his experience and what he thinks we might do moving forward. We'll have another shot at what we should do to correct things, to have a better society when we come back from this break, and we'll take that on from Lagos as well. Don't go away.
Well, let's continue that conversation. As you've seen there, Ademola Abbas joins us. He's a professor of international law, also a global affairs expert. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, we're having that issue about conversation around election matters in Nigeria. So, first of all, looking at the current scene, perhaps to even take it, from where we are coming. Looking at the current scene and the number of issues that were raised in Abuja by Mawakwe and Chamberlain, and the fact that at the end of the day, it comes to the people that can be found in the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, the people that are in politics, the people that elect people into office, the people that work in the civil service, the people that work in INEC, all citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Where do you think the weak link is?
Well, thank you very much, Ayo. Look, that's a very loaded question. The weak link, or the weakest link, if you really want to put it very graphically, cuts across a panoply of issues. I don't think it comes down to just one single entity. We have different stakeholders in the Nigerian polity, whether you are politicians, or you are citizens, or you are regulators. So it cuts across the whole. So if you just want to say, okay, this is the weak link, who do you say? The INEC, or the executive, or judiciary, or the parliamentarians, or the electorate, or the voters, or the citizens? You have to be able to, you have to break it down to begin to nitpick. Who has responsibility for what? Who does what? Because at the end of the day, we're talking about elections in Nigeria. We're talking about democracy, as your guests have been talking about. But when you look at it, there is no amount of this twigging we do that will ever resolve the issue. I'm sure we're going to come to that eventually. You have to look at the system as a whole. So it's not a question of which case goes to court. One of the questions you asked the last speaker was that there are some cases that shouldn't have gone to court, that they went to court. And I think you followed up by saying, their lawyers, they should have told their clients, politicians, when they come to them to say, look, these cases should not go to court. You think any lawyer in Nigeria will sit down and say, you bring in millions of naira to me, and I'll tell you, oh, well, you don't need to go to court. These cases can be resolved. It doesn't happen like that. So you have to look at the whole system, and I'm sure we're going to have an opportunity to
in looking at the whole system, what is the issue? Because a good number of politicians, lawyers have said about Nigeria that we're an extremely litigious people. Markwe, my colleague, went to Liberia to monitor the elections, and she's still overwhelmed by the experience that she had. In fact, the man, Mr. Yabagi Sonny, also went on that same route, on that same trip, and they have their own observations as well. So, but one thing that Markwe continues to say is that the people took ownership of the entire process. So in looking at the entire system, I ask again, where have we missed it? Because perhaps there is a baseline upon which everything else is built. A 5-year-old child, for instance, cannot go to university. It has to start at the very base level. So where is the base level that if we got it right there, everything else will build right?
Well, thank you very much. Look, when I said earlier on that you have to be able to, take it apart, I was trying to assign different responsibilities to different stakeholders. If we take the citizens, for instance, we have a largely defective political education system in Nigeria that doesn't really equip the citizens about their rights, basically, and what to look out for in elections. You've got elections that have become so heavily monetized. That one is there, and so many others. But let me go back to, let's focus on the election itself. Where did we get it wrong? Now, we as a country, we like to borrow a lot from overseas, from foreign countries, Western countries, without actually reflecting on certain ingredients that make their own system work. Let's kid ourselves. You said Nigerians are litigious. Yeah, but to be honest with you, a fraction of cases, I'm not talking about elections now, that should go to court actually never get to court in Nigeria because of sometimes loss of confidence in judiciary and so on and so forth, the expenses and the costliness and so many other things. But look at it from this angle. We have a contentious elections in Nigeria most times, but we have it in the US. We have it in other countries. But how do they deal with it? What are the issues? I think the first problem we face in Nigeria today, talking about a democracy election in Nigeria, is that our democratic system has become heavily centralized. We put everything on INEC. Every 4 years, we expect INEC to come and perform miracle, literally, for 200 million people, 36 odd states in the country. Only God knows how many local government areas and LCDAs. Within 4 years, it cannot happen. How did they do it in some countries? We have to learn how other people do it. Look at the US. States actually have the primary responsibility for conducting elections. So most states have what they call the secretaries of state, who will organize elections. Sometimes most of the litigations that will follow election will have come in the pre-election time. Let's go back to 2020, the Donald Trump election. 245 cases. Within 2 weeks before the federal election, there were 245 cases in American courts about the elections itself. The elections have not even taken place at that point in time. Because when states run elections, before they run elections, there will have been systems in place. And those systems will reflect the individuality of each state. As an example, you have some states in America today that will say if you want to vote, there must be a witness to your vote. Some will say there must be a signature. You have every state developing its own rules about election. So a state will conduct an election. Election will come from its budget. So when a state puts all those processes in place, if any party has any problem, they will have challenged them in court long before the elections. Those one will not become post-election problems. So what I'm saying is that most of the contentions, most of the litigations that go to court in Nigeria, I think about 1,200 and something cases went to the court in Nigeria after these last elections, which approximately about 94.5, of the election result actually went to court. Most of these things will arise from issues that will deal with, voter suppression, voter intimidation, irregularities, all that could have been dealt with before the elections will take place if you decentralize the process. But we don't. We don't at all. What do? We want a single body. Look at America. They have the NEC, National Electoral Commission in America, NEC, established in 1975. What does NEC do anyway? NEC do within financing, advert, and what have you. It is the Attorney General of the U.S., or the DOJ, Department of Justice, that will deal with certain federal issues in the federal elections. Every other thing is dealt with at the state level. So we need to refocus. We need to go back to the drawing board and begin to ask, how can we decentralize electoral processes in Nigeria?
It comes back to people, Prof. It comes back to people. There are those who say, who are even suggesting as we speak, and I'm very sure you're aware, that INEC should take over local government elections. I mean, as appalling as that sounds, it only speaks to the fact that people have a problem in their heads about a state or a state governor running elections in their states. So again, it comes back to people. So maybe you want to go back to that base level that you tried to, or you're trying to not go or avoid the other time. You talked about a lack of political education. Where does it start, for instance?
A brilliant question. I'm happy you mentioned the people. Why are people now clamoring that even the INEC should take over the local government elections? Because people have lost confidence in the electoral process. So we're talking about the same thing, but in different ways. You're talking about people. But if you allow people at a state level to take ownership of the elections, look, I know what you just said is the same thing, the same argument we make in Nigeria about state policing, isn't it? That, oh, if you say there should be policing should be decentralized, that the state government might use the police to, what is it called, to intimidate the opposition and this and that. But look, we are not the only federal constitution in the world. We are not the only federal system in the world. Let us stop demonizing ourselves. What I'm saying is that people have accepted that demonization, that unless something comes from the federal, we cannot do it ourselves. So people cannot take ownership of anything if you don't actually build that confidence in them and tell them, look, if a governor of a state X, you're saying you should organize, you should have primary responsibility for organizing the election. And that governor obviously says, okay, A, B, C, D are the rules in 2020 that will apply in an election year in 2024. If you are not happy as an opposition party, you go to court in 2020, 2021. That's what I'm saying. You will have challenged that. People will be there. They will see what that state is trying to do. They will have resolved all those before the election itself will take place 4 years later. That is actually what ownership is all about. People say that elections are won or lost at counting level. No, elections are won and lost at how you get people involved from the start, from the takeoff point. So if I, as a citizen of Nigeria, if I'm from a particular state and you tell me, okay, this state is going to take responsibility for this election, I want to see how that goes. I want to play my role. The civil society should join that particular process and make sure that every state is able to organize that election. For me, that is where the issue of, ownership by people will start. People cannot own anything that at the end of the day, you are backing from them from the top down.
But be that as it may, Prof, one of the issues we raised with Mr. Sonny the other time is that the Minister of Information and National Orientation already said Nigerians don't trust their elected leaders. And I'm pretty sure he didn't mean just at the federal level. He means at the state level. So how do we rebuild that trust? Because it sounds to me like you're saying if we're going to take ownership at the state's level, at the subnational level, then trust needs to start being built from that level. A situation where a governor, for instance, is being called out by the citizens, in the Ogun State example, and of course, even though the state government has come out to say something, the trust is almost certainly lost there, and a number of other parts of the country like that. So how do we build that trust back in a way that people can begin to believe in the system enough to own it?
Well, thanks, Ayo. The Yorubas will say, "Wani amukun erewo." Amukun is a crooked human being who positions a load on his head. And you're saying, look, your load is crooked up there. He said, don't focus on up there. Look at how actually I'm standing. I am crooked from beginning, so my load can never be straight. That is what the proverb speaks to. I understand that. But see, trust is never won or lost in a single day. There is a huge trust deficit in Nigeria. We all know it. But part of the problem I think we face in Nigeria is that we always like to look at very short-term solutions, quick solutions, to rather long-term problems. The trust deficit you have in Nigeria is not going to be built overnight. So if anybody is thinking, oh, we can easily address this by suddenly expecting our politicians to be less corrupt, to be more people-oriented. I mean, go back to the question you asked at the other speaker, your guest, about whether there is something that politicians should do in terms of the kind of qualification they should have before they come you know, to seek office. Well, the gentleman talked about wisdom, and I'm happy you mentioned wisdom comes from knowledge and all this stuff. But I'm not even focusing on just the certificate per se. But you're also talking about what kind of training do our politicians get? Do they have academies they go to? Do they even know what the morals and the values of their parties are all about? So when they haven't, so you know what I'm saying is that even if you have a secondary or primary or secondary school living certificate, which you might say in 21st century might be inadequate, which was you were trying to hint at, you know, and I'm not necessarily saying that you have to be a professor or a PhD holder to run for a political office. But what I'm saying is that no matter what certificate you have, you must be able, there must be subsequent training. You go to China, go to even South Africa. You have youth who are processed through academies, through institutions, established by parties. Look at the NDI, National Democratic Institute in America. Look at the IRI, International Republican Institute in America. These are institutes that actually process politicians. You know, let's talk about local football here. Very rarely do you see people just waking up one day, not going through the eaglets, flying before you get to Super Eagle level. But in politics, literally any idiot can wake up tomorrow who has never tasted power, who doesn't even understand anything about governance, just because, as your last speaker said, he has the backing of his people, and people love him. It doesn't matter how that trust whatsoever. Then say, I want to be president of Nigeria, and that is it. What does this person even understand about governance, about the morals, about the values, about the wants of the people, about what the people really want him to go and do in that particular office? We've got to a situation in which now any elected representative just will get a couple of hundred and go and buy something, and they call it empowerment for people. You know, you have to look at all those, you know, long-term solutions to be able to fix the problem. So I'm saying that yes, people have to take ownership of the process, but that has to go. We have to go to the basics. Don't let's focus on just the election period.
Now, you know, you were trying to give us some stats the other time talking about our elections. There is a contention now between whether or not the elections are won at the polls or at the courts. Take it from 2007, the numbers of the general election petitions in the country have been very, very interesting. In 2007, for instance, there were 1,282 petitions, making 85.7%. 2011, 51.4%. 2015 was far less because the president of the day at the time conceded on time and, you know, quelled a lot of pressures. But look at what happened in 2019, 51.2%. And in 2023, it seems 2023 and 2027 were contesting 1,209 petitions, making 80.82% in all, you know, in all of the cases, you know, that went to court. So between the courts and the ballot box, what do you make of these figures? Well, Mark, we're trying to give us some understanding of this yesterday, saying that it's not all of them that happened at the polls, so it's not all laid on INEC, but some of them came from within the political parties themselves, contending and all of that. Where do we go from here?
Well, that is very interesting stats, and I think I spoke a bit to some of them earlier on. You know, nobody should blame politicians for going to court. I mean, for me, on the one hand, the fact that you have a surge in the number of cases going to court might also be a testimony to the fact that there is an increase today in our democratic consciousness. You look at it from that angle. Then number two, it could also be actually that, you know, politicians are becoming more and more interested in using judicial processes to be able to help to vindicate when they say they are wrong, their rights being wronged or something like that. But for me, what is more important is not that we have all these cases going to the court. It's whether, as I said earlier on, we should have put processes in place that will have resolved a lot of these cases long before the elections take place. And that is the point we are missing.
So you are calling for a review of the electoral law?
Completely. We need to review it to see all those institutions that could have been contained, you know, at a very low level before the elections will take place. Because when you look at some of the cases, they come from things like voter intimidation, ballot paper did not arrive at the polling booth in time and this and that. And that is what I said, that if, for instance, a state is charged with the responsibility for conducting election, that state will have decided what materials go to where at what time. That if anybody has a problem, you have 3-4 years to challenge that in court. So that problem will have been eliminated, ab initio. That is from the point of, from the very beginning. That problem will never become a problem at the end. But what we do in Nigeria is that we don't do anything. We wait for 4 years for INEC to then come and then suddenly want to fix all those problems. That cannot be the case.
Well, I'm almost certain that my colleagues in Abuja will want to weigh in, but this starts from, that Professor Odinkalu, put out along with a number of other people. Do you think, I mean, you spoke to the need for political education the other time and some form of training for a politician to get into office, perhaps in a kind of response to the question I asked Mr. Sonny the other time. There are those, in that regard, there's those who have proposed that NIPS might be a good place to start, the National Institute of Policy and Strategic Studies. Do you agree with those who think so?
Well, NIPS has a role to play. But then NIPS is not only geared towards politicians, but here we are talking about institutes. I am aware the APC is trying to set up a National Progressive Institute at the moment, NPI. You need such institutes in Nigeria that could say, look, if you want to run for a post, we need to be sure that you know the values of this particular political party. You know about our morals, our values, what we stand for, what we will tolerate, what we won't tolerate, so on and so forth. We need all those. So NIPS is just one of those entities, but I'm talking about institutions that are specifically dedicated to this.
Okay. Chamberlain.
Well, Prof, good morning. Good to see you again. I just wonder, because when lots of people have listened to the narratives just coming back from Liberia and so many lessons and how peaceful the elections were. Yes, they're in the runoff now, and it's not even as acrimonious. I hope it ends that way. Not as acrimonious as in some other claims as it will be. But when you say we need to do something about the laws, yes, I know you're also a lawyer, but there are several people who say, look, there are several other countries who don't have half as much laws as specific as we do have here, but their attitude is of huge importance. How those persons who are seeking to contest those positions conduct themselves, how the followers also conduct themselves, is huge. I mean, I've listened to several people who have reminded us in time past, in the days of old, in this same country, how you don't have to shut your doors, you don't have to live under a cage, things were going all nice and smooth without any panic or anything, but times have changed. So is it just about our laws or about us, people, how we conduct ourselves?
Well, thank you, Chamberlain, and nice to see you again. Actually, I didn't talk about the change of the laws. I spoke about changing the system, the different things entirely. And you're right to point out that Nigeria has a lot of laws. The problem is not the law. I'm talking about a system that has over-centralized the electoral process in a way that you've put an immense responsibility on just one single entity called INEC. And I'm saying, if you bring an angel today to come and be INEC chairman, you're going to have problems in Nigeria anyway. Not because the angel or the INEC chairman is corrupt or anything, but because the system simply cannot deliver the way it is configured. I am saying, for instance, many of the cases that go to court today after elections are issues that could have been addressed long before the elections would take place. I give you an example, like 2020 in the US. 245 cases were in court in America about the presidential election that was going to take place 2 weeks after that. You know that you will have been, state had an opportunity to be able to challenge a lot of those processes before they will be tested at the elections. But we don't do that because we call on INEC to do everything. What I'm saying is that let's find a way to decentralize our electoral system. Let's give state primary responsibility to conduct elections. I know what you're going to say, that a state might do this, or a state, if, for instance, this party is in power, is going to do this. That argument is an argument we use to also to demonize ourselves at the end of the day. If I am from a state A and I say, I want this particular process to be in this, to apply in my state, other parties have the opportunity to be able to go to court and challenge that particular process long before the election itself will take place. And that's what I'm talking about. Don't let us demonize ourselves thinking we are the only one who has very contentious. Look, the most contentious election in America was not even Donald Trump, was 1876. During President Rutherford A, the Republican Rutherford A, and Samuel Tilden, of the Democratic Party. That was the first time somebody who did not win the majority, didn't win the Electoral College, actually became the president because at the end of the day, they could not agree. Tilden won the election, fair and square, but there was disagreement. What happened? The Senate and the representative in America, the Congress, came together and did the counting themselves and sat down and had a compromise to say, you know what, although Samuel Tilden won the election, it will go to Rutherford A. That was in 1877 compromise at the end of the day. Now, what I'm saying, in essence, is that we must put processes in place, not just the law, processes that will facilitate us to be able to deliver democracy in the way it's supposed to be delivered. What we have now is not going to be able to deliver, and we are just kidding ourselves to be expecting a magician called INEC to come and fix the problem every 4 years. It is not going to happen. It's not about the law, it's about the system.
Where is this initiative which you speak of? Prof, sorry to interrupt you, but where is this initiative which you speak of supposed to start?
Which one is that? Sorry?
The initiative of trying to clean the system, of overhauling the system. Where would you place the burden of the initiative?
I'll play the burden back to our Constitution to allow states to be able to have primary responsibility for organizing elections. Look, we have it in other countries. We have it in America and so many other countries. States will be able to take charge of election. The budget will be run by state. State attorney general will be able to deal with electoral problems. So any problems you have...
Prof,
yes.
Prof, just a moment. Did I hear you say states? I mean, we're going to say, some people are going to say, but we have CX. And we've seen these sort of elections that oftentimes are conducted by CX. These elections return more often than not 100% members of the political party of the governor of that particular state. And you say state?
That's right, Markwe. But the same thing we have when INEC conducts election or when FEDECO conducts elections. All I'm saying is that let's give ourselves a chance, an opportunity to say that we want the people to own the process. And for me, how do they own the process? It's just like the same excuse we give ourselves when it comes to question of state policing, to say, somebody in power, if a governor is going to use the apparatus of policing in the state to humiliate or to demonize or to attack another state, let's stop demonizing ourselves. What I'm saying is that let's look at other climes. How have they done it? I am saying, for instance, if a state puts processes, So if a state, as an example, has processes, I'm saying that there will be opportunity to challenge those processes long before elections, so that you won't have a lot of cases as we have today going to court after election is important. And number two, we need to start having confidence, to rebuild confidence in our system. We can't rebuild that confidence by just looking for short-term solutions to very long-term problems. The problems facing Nigerian democracy today are long-term. It's not something we're going to fix within the next 4 years. We're kidding ourselves. So I'm not saying review the law. I'm saying let us look at the system again. Let's take a second look. And there's nothing wrong in that. Let's take a second look. We have countries in the world where you have university campuses having police. They don't use them to humiliate. I understand the fear, but, let me give you a local example, as I used to do. I used to live in Magodo some time ago. One day I woke up and I found out that all the roads in Magodo, literally overnight, had speed bumps. And I was alarmed. So I went to one of the association reps. I said, what happened? Oh, they said because people were overspeeding. I said, great. So because 0.1% of road users were overspeeding, you start to criminalize everybody. Did you actually do any articulation? Did you do any mobilization, any orientation? The dangers of speed? Did you put any signpost? Don't do more than, because if you don't put signposts there, don't do more than 30 miles an hour, I am free to do 70 miles an hour. In other words, we have all this fire brigade and ninja approaches to our problems, and that is part of the issue in Nigeria. So in a nutshell, what I'm saying is that let us go back to the drawing board. Let us be less hasty. And for goodness sake, let us be more charitable of our own heritage.
Okay. Well, so much to unpack. Let's hope that especially the National Assembly is listening to you right now. Well, thank you so much for this insight you've given us this morning. Ademola Abbas is Professor of Law, Professor of International Law, and he's a Global Affairs expert. Your contribution to the program very quickly this morning. Taiwo Olopade, yours comes first about election matters. Going by the controversies trailing the certificate of the three leading presidential candidates in the 2023 presidential elections, I submit that INEC should ensure that the certificate of the candidates of parties contesting the 2027 elections is verified before the poll. This will save us from the embarrassment that the country has been subjected to in the eyes of the world.
Well, looking at a number of other mails we see here, this is from Eka Dixon. He says the conduct of the INEC and political parties in the 2023 election seems to be the worst in recent times, as it has reduced the pedigree of INEC to some years back with too many pre- and post-election cases in court, and this may be due to some loopholes in the 2022 Electoral Act. The processes of amending the Electoral Act to address grey areas such as electronic voting and transmission of results should be worked upon immediately, just like electronic accreditation. We could have real-time electronic voting. The National Assembly should be fast this time around, carry all political parties, civil society organizations, and the media along, as well as seek their input before the passage.
I remember somebody who reminded Ayo when he says, carry us along, what that meant. Okay, one tweet, and then I have another. This is from Prophet Nahena. He says, we must vote for leaders who must realize that we live in very hard times and Nigerians have become more vulnerable and objectively more diversified along ethnic lines and vigilant than they have been. So, INEC must respond to the demands of building a new Nigeria where elections are reasonably free and fair, and that will presumably curtail a probable decadent society with a litany of irresponsible litigations where candidates are becoming more desperate and audacious. Then this is from Polycarp. He says, it's not fair to heap the blame on INEC for the high level of election cases at the courts. An in-depth analysis of these cases will reveal that most of the petitioners, he says, are bordering petitioners or petitions.
Well,
okay, I think it should be most of the
petitions, don't they?
Okay. He says they are bordering on the qualification of the winners, and the large majority of these cases are thrown out by the tribunals. So it is misleading to suggest that the high level of litigation is an indictment on INEC. INEC have no control over bad losers going to court to challenge the qualification of the winners. What should be of concern to us is what proportion of the elections are overturned by the courts. Let's not also send them a message, look, the courts, going to the courts is a legitimate and valid way to address these issues. So we shouldn't dissuade them from going to courts. But we get your points, everyone, and we welcome them. So we like ideas, content in here, because that's what should drive a nation. Ideas rule the world, they say, isn't it? All right, so there you go. That is the show today. Well, thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time. I'm Chamberlain Oso.
Well, if your email is not read, please do try again. Make sure you're getting the address correctly.
Don't give up.
Don't give up. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Mark Welcome, you, sir.
And don't give up on Nigeria, too. That's very, very important. I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful rest of your day.